Welcome to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Hey, that's me. Hi, and welcome to Positive Talk. Our show features the best positive stories and people from around the globe as we endeavor to answer the universal question of why am I here and what is my purpose? Understanding that can change everything, and knowing your greatness is fundamental to living your best life. So join us right now as together we work to create the adventure of our lifetime.
Boy, oh boy, if you want to create the adventure of your lifetime, I know where you need to go. We've got a great guest for you today because she has had the adventure of a lifetime. Most of it good, some of it, not so good, but that's what life is really all about. She's an author now. She's got a brand new book that's almost going to be coming out any day now. You can go to her website, which is BethMcDmedia.com, and find out all about her and her work. And you may be thinking to yourself, and Rochelle, I don't think you are because you're a little younger, but if you are been around for a little while, you may be going, Beth McDonough. Beth McDonough. I know that name, Beth McDonough. Where do I know that name from? And I can tell you that at one point, if you turned on your TV, and it might have been on CNN or MSNBC or many other channels, local channels, you would have seen our guest. Her name is Beth McDonough. And Rochelle, what do you think?
I think it's awesome. I'm very excited for this conversation. Beth has lived a very extraordinary life and chose very out-of-the-box things to do, and I love to hear about that, and I actually do recognize her. So thank you so much for being here, and this is absolutely wonderful. I have to say you look exactly the same as you did when I was a kid.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I love you. You're my new best friend. And I have joked with people, because you have to have a little bit of levity in this to survive it all, that I'm either, depends on when you knew me, if I was famous or infamous.
Well, and I want you to go to BethMcDmedia.com, because there's a picture there that we're going to end up having to talk about at one point, because it is her, as they say, mugshot. And then even the president has a mugshot, and so we're not going to get into that. But Beth has had an extraordinary life. So Beth, when did you start getting into media and putting yourself out there in front of the camera?
I knew that I was first interested in it way back in grade school when a local anchor came to our classroom and talked to us about civic affairs and that sort of thing. And I was in 6th grade, and I was just enamored with her, and she seemed so smart and poised and very worldly and knowledge about all things going on in the world. And I thought, when I grow up, I'm going to be her. And so I knew as a youngster, that's what I wanted to do. So I kind of set my sights and my tunnel vision on it. And so I went to college for that. And, it's probably a good thing. I remember back in grade school, in my note cards, the postcards and your report cards from your teachers, all loved them. My mother kept them all. Says she talks too much, talks too much, talks too much. And so I thought, well, this might just be fitting. I get paid to talk for a living. I'm very curious about people and events and how people survive things in events. I've always been drawn to survivors, which is what I think led me to covering major disasters. We called it news, murder, death, destruction, mayhem, 35W bridge collapse, 9/11. Those were everyday things that I covered and saw, because I tried the anchoring for a little bit, being in a studio with folks like you, but I needed more of the action. I loved more of the action and being on the front line. And so reporting was my happy place.
And being there, because you were in New York at the time, I believe, when 9/11 happened. And so go ahead.
I was actually in Philadelphia, and I was on air standing by to do a live shot with New York. talking about the largest teacher strike in U.S. history at that time. And so my crew and I are standing outside looking at the monitor, waiting for the anchors to toss to me from New York. And because this is a nationwide story. And so I was watching the TV and I was waiting for one of the network anchors to toss to me. And he's talking about the first plane that hit. And, of course, we're all like, oh, this is awful. And then he starts talking about the second plane, and you see the second plane go in, and I've never had chills that quickly. My crew and I didn't say anything to each other. We knew we'd been doing this long enough. We knew this was bad, and we took off all of our equipment. We packed up and we waited for the call because Philly's only an hour and a half from New York. And we waited for the call, and the bosses called and they said, we'll have an RV for you at Liberty City. You're going to live there with 12 other journalists till further notice. You'll do these shifts, and this is your lot in life till further notice. So I was actually on air for another story when that happened, and we quickly switched like we do in this business, right?
Exactly. And I don't know if you've seen it, but do you remember, because Regis and Kathy Lee were on air during this, and they are recording what their reactions were and the audience reaction as the second plane hit the towers and stuff. It was, and I remember being at home in Seattle. Now, 9/11 is my birthday. And so I was getting ready to,
don't even know what to say to that.
Yeah, I was getting ready to have a great birthday and stuff, and we were listening to the radio and in the morning, and the disc jockey said, I don't often say this, but you might want to turn on your TV. And of course, it was everywhere and stuff. So I spent my birthday sitting down watching TV and watching 9/11 happen in the aftermath and the horrific moments in time. So, everybody, I think that's one of those things that as an example, I remember where I was when I heard about JFK, John Kennedy being killed. I remember where I was when the Beatles were on the Ed Sullivan Show. I was in my bed because my parents wouldn't let me stay up. I remember Robert Kennedy and Martin Luther King and 9/11. Those are, the big memories that you know exactly what you were doing. Or on John Lennon's death and stuff. So, because I've been around a while, Beth. I've been around a long time.
There's some gray hair in that beard of yours.
There is. Yeah. Well, and they tell me it's distinguished. Although I did have a guest earlier say, I had a wonderful interview with you. You are number one and Santa Claus is number two. I said, is that because of my beard? Maybe that's it. I don't know. But it,
well, that's a compliment. That's a compliment.
I thought so, but Rochelle, you were just a little itty bitty teeny weeny thing when 9/11 happened, so you won't remember that. But do you have memories of watching Beth on TV?
Actually, I do. It was after third grade. We had moved into our what we were calling our home that we lived in from third grade all the way up until I was in my 20s, and I would remember coming home, and it was in the evening usually, and if we wouldn't watch a movie, there was always, of course, the news on, and we weren't big TV show watchers, but there was certain shows that we loved. We loved Animal Planet, anything with dancing and singing, of course, because of me, and then specifically anything investigative and crime. I've always thought it was super interesting since I was small, so I understand where you get that from, and I just remember more of it being like the realization of life all the time when I was seeing Beth's face is like all these horrific events going on, but the way that you're able to tell the story also is just a completely different view. I loved listening to you rather than other shows, and it was just a fun time. So I am surprised that you're here in front of me now and doing the show with us, and I have to shout out Samuel, who is commenting on the show here. Samuel is the founder of an organization we recently learned from Kenya, and he supports all the children and feeds them and has a beautiful, beautiful community. If you ever want to go maybe publish something really cool or get yourself interested to go to Kenya, Samuel would be the guy to meet. So hi, Samuel. We love you from Positive Talk Radio. And yeah, Beth, was there like a turning point though in your career where like you realized that was there somebody that tried to tell you exactly what you were good at and you didn't agree with them and stuck to the path you were on, and that's what got you this far?
Oh, yes, so many times. And I really have to keep a sense of humor about it. Back in the day, when I was a little bitty cub reporter trying to make my way and cut my teeth through various markets, and I started in Joplin, Missouri, and then went to Lubbock and Texas, Tyler, Texas. And I would send out all of these resumes and tapes back in the day, if anyone remembers tapes. Now, of course, it's just you go to somebody's link. And I got 300 no's from various TV stations before I got one yes. And that one yes was Joplin, Missouri. And that got me on my way. So it's right on the border of Missouri and Kansas. Little bitty market, our TV station actually was in a farm field. And that's where it started. And along the way, there have been so many no's, I lost track. There's just so many no's. But when I hear no, I am a little bit of a defiant personality. I kind of step back and I'm like, okay, why? Number one, why are they telling me no? And then number two, their loss. I view it as watch this. It motivates me. When someone would kind of doubt me or I wasn't their first choice, it motivates me to want to become their first choice.
Beth, this is instructive for a lot of people in the audience who may have aspirations, but they get told no, and they say, oh, that's why you should have known that. That's just the way it is, and nobody loves me and stuff. What was it in you that kept you? Was it pure defiance, or was it that you knew that you could do this and that they just didn't get it?
It was a couple of things. Certainly tenaciousness. I was born with it. My mom says I kind of came out of the chute like this, that I'm not a very good quitter, which is great professionally, probably not so good when you're an alcoholic. I'm just, I'm not a good quitter. And when someone says, oh, it's hard or it's impossible, and I listen to them and I'm like, for whom? I'm never going to give up unless I try first. I'm just not going to, not try. And then when people have told me no, or, and in this business, people always say, you don't quite have the style that we want. It's very subjective. And hearing no from them is fine because everyone's entitled to their opinion. And as you get stronger in this business and you get more of a backbone, you just kind of let the nose roll off your back because that's their opinion. Somebody else is going to have a different opinion. And my father, growing up as well, we had a mantra in our house. And this is something I live to by this day too, which is don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to try. And so, and in fact, I can tell you, a long time ago in a different life, I was married and my husband was a New Yorker. And, New Yorkers, there's no better place on earth. It's New York or Boston for him. And here I was, from LA. Then I spent my growing up years in Oklahoma. I'm in Missouri. I meet him. And I said, I really want to go network. That's what I want to do. And he kind of smiled and he was like, network, the East Coast, the news business, it can eat you up. And I'm like, yeah, bring it. That was just my mentality. And I ended up getting, on the East Coast to Philadelphia and working for the networks and doing live shots on MSNBC. So no is a motivator for me.
Now, Beth, I got to ask you, because I asked people that have been on the red carpet, I've asked people that have done unusual things. What's it like when you're standing in front of the camera and you've got the producer that's standing next to the camera and you're prepared and you're ready to go, and then the director points at you and the camera starts? what's going through your mind? And at that moment, is it sheer terror, or are you used to it?
I am so used to it. That is, you hear people talk about getting into their zone, whatever it is they do, whether it's a hobby, work, or their workout. That it was my happy place. That was home to me. Being on TV, it just came, fortunately, naturally. Not that I didn't have some nervous occasions early on, I did. But like anything, the more you do it in life and the more you're on live air, the more comfortable and confident you get. And I really took great pains to kind of follow a certain course. So I would get my confidence and make all my mistakes in little bitty small markets and get my confidence as I was rising through the markets to learn in small towns and small TV stations why we have to do all of these things. And then when I would go to my next move, the next bigger step up, I had an understanding for why producers needed this at a certain time, or why 1 second really matters in live TV. Right? Because we've all heard that. And it's interesting, right before the director tosses to you, what does he say? Stand by. Well, that's the title of my book, because stand by also refers to, be ready, be prepared for what's coming next. And that's, the title of the book. And I think it's very appropriate.
And we're talking with Beth McDonough, and the name of her book is Stand By. We need to take a quick break. And when we come back, I want to talk about the hiccup that you had in between where you were, where you are now, and it's all detailed in the book and stuff. And so it really is an important moment in time for a lot of people to see because at one time you were on the national news and they were showing your picture that was your mugshot. We'll be right back.
You became a real estate agent for freedom, success, and real momentum. So why are you still stuck waiting for closings to save you? I'm Ophir Adar, founder of Real Momentum, and I help agents like you become seven-figure earners. My first client that I coached, brand new agent, made $250,000 back in 2006. What's the secret? You feed your white wolf. That's the part of you that's bold and unstoppable and a closer and able to build rapport quickly. So click Get Listings at Real Momentum and let's unleash your real estate potential.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonough. Rochelle is here. And Rochelle, I've never asked you this question. Do you have a mugshot?
Oh, Kevin, I do not, actually. Thank goodness.
You haven't lived until you've had a mugshot. I haven't had one either, so. And we're talking with Beth McDonough. She is a nationally known news person, has been on the air with CNN and MSNBC. Did you ever make it on Fox?
Oh, yeah. I worked for Fox, KMSP in Minneapolis, the Fox O&O there. I worked there. And I also worked at the Fox TV station in Philadelphia.
Now, in all of your work that you've done, it's a high pressure thing. How did you release some of the pressure when in your off time? Was there a little bit of, a little glass of wine every now and again?
There's a little glass of wine, yes, Kevin. And it starts with a little wine and then it becomes a lot of wine. Yes, it was about 2005 that a whole bunch of things were going on in my personal life. My mother had passed away unexpectedly. And my father didn't take that well. And he had a little bit of a mental breakdown. And then lo and behold, in the middle of planning her funeral, he had to have emergency heart surgery, quadruple bypass.
Oh, my God.
And I'm kind of the caretaker in the family. And of course, I handle tragedies for a living. And so I went back to Oklahoma to take care of all of that. And my mother's passing was unexpected. We were very, very close. And so I kind of took care of all of that. And then when I came back to Minnesota working for Fox, right about the same time a romance ended, which is an excuse. Just all these things were going on in my life. And so I really didn't take time. And I don't think I knew how to grieve then, to be honest with you. My mother's death, she was everything to me. And it just cut so deeply to me that I don't even think I knew how to deal with that grief. And I can handle everyone else's problems and their tragedies and share their angst and agony. But I had a hard time dealing with mine. And so, I turned to my wine witch. When I'd get home after work, I usually work the night shift. And, after work, we'd all go out from reporters and anchors from other stations, maybe blow off some steam at the bar. And it started out kind of being a party girl, and then it turned into more quickly. And French used to say to me that, gosh, Beth, like you have one glass of wine and you go from 0 to 100. And I'm like, I know, why is my toleration so low? And then I would see them at a restaurant get up and leave a glass of wine at the table or a beer. And I'm like, how do they do that? It's just, I couldn't even fathom, And so, I started drinking more and more after work. We'd go out and go decompress, and in the hopes that maybe you don't bring some of the yuck that you see every day home as well, right? So that was one way that I was decompressing. I also worked out and ran a lot. I used to do marathons back in the day. And speaking of discomfort, I did a marathon in Chicago and I blew my back out at the 19th mile. Well, again, I'm not a quitter. So I finished that marathon, by gosh, and then I went and got back surgery. So not being a quitter is not good when you're an alcoholic. And so my drinking became not just nights, then it was weekends. And then I would start to drive to different liquor stores. Some people doctor shopped for other reasons. I liquor store shopped. And I did that because I didn't want any of the cashiers to get a whiff that I might have a problem. Oh, there's that news girl. She's in here all the time. Da, da, da.
That would be so hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I started to cut back in some other areas of my life so I could afford drinking. That's just so 20 shades of messed up. And those were some signs to me that I was like, oh, I knew I'm getting into trouble here. And I thought, being a strong person and, having lived life quite a bit, when we get a backbone in this business, I thought I'll be able to get a handle on this, right? I can outsmart it. I'm a smart person. Let me sit down. Let me figure this out. Maybe if I just drink on the weekends, it'll be fine. And what you realize is alcohol doesn't negotiate. And it waits for you. And that little, tickling of your brain, it's always there. And so over time, my drinking increased to where I would only have a couple of drinks out with friends, but then I'd go home and finish a bottle of wine myself. And
I gotta ask you.
Uh-huh.
No, I gotta ask you, because one of the symptoms of this is that you had a couple of drinks with friends and then you're on your way home, and mentally you went through the inventory of how much wine you had at home, and if you were concerned that you might not have quite enough wine, you would stop at the store and pick up another bottle as insurance. Did that ever happen to you?
Yes. Yeah, because you didn't want to ever be without. That was I lived alone at the time, and that was my comfort when I got home. That was my buddy when I got home. It was always there for me, just like my dog. Always there for me when I got home.
What kind of dog you have?
Oh, I have a dachshund. He's sitting right here. He's very handsome.
Oh, we love dogs, don't we, Rochelle?
Yes, we do. We love the animals.
They're the fur babies.
Have you ever
Yes,
had
indeed.
a story or a report about an animal that was super meaningful to you by chance?
Oh my gosh, Rochelle, thank you for asking that. You are the first person who has, because and dogs in my second book play into my recovery because I couldn't get a job anywhere after,
Right.
I went through all my punishments and everything from the DUIs in the first year in recovery. And I couldn't get a job anywhere. I lost my car because if you get 2 DUIs in the state of Minnesota in 10 years, they can seize your car and sell it at auction. I lost my license for a year and no one would hire me. I couldn't even get a job at the mall or the grocery store, which will lead me to the dogs. So I've always had dogs. I've hired many a dog sitter in my life, used doggy daycares and boarding for when I travel because I traveled a lot for work. And so I thought, here I am broke, about to lose my home. I have no income. I'm going to go ask my neighbors if they'll let me walk their dogs for like $20 a time, So I did. I started walking their dogs in the dead of a Minnesota winter and picking up their poop. And I built that over time into doggy daycare and then boarding and then grooming. And then I got a little warehouse. So fast forward to, I love dogs. I've had dogs my entire life. And there's a story of Olive, and she's actually in the second book that I'm writing right now. And I did a story on her. The Olive's mom, she was a little Shih Tzu mix and a rescue. Cute. Little Shih Tzus are so cute. And her mother had reached out to me because she and her husband went on vacation. They hired a professional pet sitter through a pet sitting service, a nationally known one. And while they were on vacation, they got a call from the emergency vet that her dog's eyes were successfully removed. And how did she want to pay for it? And when would she come pick her up? And imagine being on vacation and that's your phone call. And who wouldn't, flip their lid, if you will. And so the parents, flew back. They filed a police report. They were trying to track down this dog sitter. They were trying to make the national company that recommended this dog sitter aware of what happened, and they just weren't getting any traction anywhere. And when people are like that, they're frustrated. They tend to turn to the media. So I remember her mother's name even, Deb. And Deb reached out to me and she said, I know you're a big dog lover. I always have pictures of my dogs everywhere. And she said, here's my problem. Can you do anything to help us? And I'm like, you better believe I can. In the media, we cover a lot of bad things, but every now and then we can also make a positive difference. And I just, I knew I could be of help here. So we go to the home to meet Olive. This little dog, maybe 8 pounds, 10 pounds, no eyes. Her eyes were sewn shut because somehow she was either kicked or choked that her eyes had popped out. And then the dog sitter just abandoned her essentially at the vet, and she was chipped, which is how the vet was able to then contact the parents because the dog sitter didn't contact the parents. And so you can see all the messiness here. And I'm just horrified. But we go into the house, we meet this little Olive. You would have never known the trauma she's been through. She's all happy. She's loving on you. She's in your business. The crew that I was working with that day, my photographer and live truck op, both of them are cat people. They don't really like dogs. And I thought, this will be interesting to see how this goes. Oh, Olive won them over. She's all in their business, kissing on them, and loving on them. So we do a story and I investigate and I dig and find the pet sitter and she was trying to hide from all of this, and then reached out to the national company. And, when I confronted her, she immediately slammed the door in my face. And I let her know, this wouldn't go away. I wouldn't go away. And then we put it on TV that night, also to just raise awareness about, for any pet owner, like any proper parent, check out who you're entrusting your fur babies to. And tons of emails came in the next day of other dog owners who'd gone through the same thing at the hands of this sitter.
Oh my goodness, no.
So then, and we didn't know that at the time, I thought, just having done this for a long time, I thought, she's probably not the first, but I don't know. We'll have to see. Let's do a story and let's see what comes from this. Well, then I was able to amass all of these emails, go to the police department, hand them, it was like maybe a dozen, quite a few. Hand them over to the police department, all of them accusing the same sitter of the same thing. And so she did, face some punishments and some animal cruelty charges and some other things. And so this mother reached out, and I'm just so relieved that we were able to get some justice for her and for her dog Olive. And then, and I know I'm a little verbose here, but I know, having traveled a lot, and these are working parents, I said, I know that we're just meeting through these circumstances. And I know that you'll never trust someone to take care of her again. And she goes, no. And I said, if you would be open to it, come to my house. I have a 1-level house, which is good for a blind dog. I have a 1-level backyard. I have 2 little hot dogs that they just love any dog that comes into their world. They'll love all over her. Come over and make an unannounced visit at my home. And I would be happy to keep your dog anytime you go out of town, because I just know I would never trust someone again. And so I did. I had the great fortune of not only reporting on little Olive, but I got to keep her for a weekend, which was just full circle.
That is amazing.
Thank you for
I'm so
Michelle.
glad I asked that question.
I am too. That really is a great story. That is a great story. By the way, everybody, we're talking with Beth McDonough, and she is a nationally known media person, and for some of the not all the right reasons, which we're going to talk about when we come back. But you know what? There's a great ending to this chapter. Number one is she's an author. Stand By is her book that's coming out within a month. And you can go to her website, which is Beth McD Media, and you can pre-order it and all of that. So we need to take our halftime break, and we will be right back more with Beth and Burchelle. Great question, Burchelle. Thank you for bringing that out. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Brushwood Media Network, the best in syndicated talk, news, and entertainment shows.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. As you gather with family and friends who love and support you, look closer. There are youth right in your community who don't have the home, warmth, and healing you have. So look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. And for 50 years, Covenant House has worked relentlessly to keep them safe and protected. Tonight, 2,000 young people will sleep safely in a Covenant House bed. And tomorrow, they will wake up surrounded by love. They get clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In sites across America to help them fulfill the great promise of their lives. So look closer at Covenant House. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry. My nose is running. I have allergies.
No problem. Welcome back to Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Burchelle is here, and Beth McDonough is here. She is a broadcaster, and she's seen some of the things in our world live that have happened again, there's a story that she's going to have to tell. But first, before we go there, you were in the midst of working, and at one point, your alcoholism took a bit of control, and you got arrested. Tell us about that and the second one, and what that whole story and what that all meant for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we've talked about mugshots, and you can see one of them over my shoulder, and I actually have 2. So I'll use a landmark of, some people might remember this, the 35W bridge collapse. It was August 2007, and it was shortly after that I got my very first DUI. And it stung. The first one stung. There was a little blurb in the paper. I got certainly a pretty good tongue lashing from my boss, and deservedly so, because, I did this to them. They didn't do this to me. And I was suspended for a month, and then I was required to go to 1 year of counseling and AA every week and prove to the bosses that I was doing something along those lines. So it hurt enough that I was like, okay. And he warned me, because I was working for Fox at the time, and my boss never once offered me help. I need to point that out. He said, Beth, if you have a problem, we will get you help. I can get you help. because he said, you're integral to us. You have a job here for life. We want you here. Let us help you. And shame is a powerful thing. Nobody wants to grow up to be labeled an alcoholic. I certainly didn't. And, you feel like if you I felt like if I did, other people, I've got this battle brewing. Number one, it makes me vulnerable. But the shame, it held me back from getting any help. And so I told him, no, this will never happen again. And he said, well, I can't guarantee we'll keep your job because you signed a morality clause in your contracts. Plus, Fox has a zero tolerance policy. And I'm like, okay. And so I was able to keep my job, with the promise that I would stop drinking and this would never happen again. And I loved where I worked and I loved my boss. I had a great deal of respect for him. And so immediately after that, it scared me sober for a little bit. And then as these things do, time goes by, your resistance gets a little thinner and thinner. You're going out with colleagues or friends and they're all drinking and you're not, but you want to. It seems like fun, but it's not fun to get busted. And I was able to kind of white knuckle my way through it until I got my second DUI in 2 years, which happened on Halloween night of all things. And, I'd gone out with some colleagues to check out a new bar and a cabaret singer. And I remember thinking, if you get to 3 drinks, Beth, get up and leave. You got to go home. And that's how I would try and do it, is temper my drinking in public, and go home and get busy. And so I remember thinking, I'm getting drunk. This is not good. Why I didn't take an Uber and a cab, I don't know. I'm an alcoholic. This is, you want to get home and you don't take the safe way to get there. And of course, I regret that. So I went to go tab out and I said, hey, how many drinks did I have? And she said 5. And I'm like, oh my God, I got to get home, whew. So anyway, I start driving home. I hit someone on the highway at 80 miles an hour. He was not injured. His car was injured. And by the time I got home, which was just a few miles away, the police were waiting for me. I don't remember a lot about what happened. I kind of go in and out of blackouts when I drink. And so, I can share with you what I remember. I still don't remember the accident to this day. I only know what happened through police reports and, what I've been told from investigators. I also don't remember the first DUI. And so the second DUI, and I presume the story that you want to hear, I have so many I could share with you, is the one where I woke up in jail.
You can tell that's when you saw yourself on the TV. Yeah.
Yes. So the second DUI, I was in a blackout. And when I did wake up, about 36 hours later, I was in a jail cell. I had cuffs on my wrist still. I was in an orange jumpsuit, feeling like trash, of course, because I was extremely hungover. And when I woke up and I started looking around and you're in a foreign place, and I'm like, oh, no. And all of these women in the drunk tank are watching the TV on the wall, because what do you do to pass time in jail? And so the news anchors, who I'm friends with, are talking about a train wreck, and then they segue into a story about me. And ironically, I'd like to point out, I covered that train wreck the day before. And so I'm like, you bet I'm a train wreck. I thought that's where we were going with this. You bet I'm a train wreck. And, so then they went to a story about me, and my mugshot was on front of the TV, and all of these women, are looking at that, talking about me, and they don't know it's me in the holding cell at the time. And oh boy, and they're like, she's screwed. And I'm like, oh, yes, she is. She's that. And so I called my attorney. He made me stay in jail until Monday, because I didn't learn my lesson the first time. And he said, when you do, get out, we bail you out. I'm going to park a few blocks away, and, you can come over and hop in the car and I'll give you a ride home. Well, he parked about 10 blocks away in the dead of a winter to further teach me a lesson, but also to make me do the walk of shame in front of all the TV cameras that were waiting outside of jail when I was released. And so I had to go and do that walk of shame after seeing my mugshot on the news. And the deputy that was releasing me too, as we're in the elevator and she's showing me to the door, she goes, I walked you out your first time. And I'm like, oh, this is just, I've got a problem. I got to get this together. This is, this is bad. And I knew this time I would be fired. The boss warned me once, and I violated that and betrayed that. And so I knew I would be fired. My attorney took me home, and as we were I lived on a cul-de-sac in this townhome community, just normal neighborhood, and all the media was parked up and down the street, cameras waiting, live shots ready to go to get me coming home, including Inside Edition. And it was right then, I was like, I don't even know if I'm alive anymore. This, there's no coming back from this. This is bad. And so when I got inside my home and of course pulled on my blinds and, I just couldn't fathom answering the door. But my boss did call and he said, we need to see you at the TV station the next day. And I lost my car and my license, as I mentioned. And I said, I don't have a way to get there. And just to hear his disgust, he was like, all right, I'll send you a cab, because I just played into how much I disappointed him. So they gave me a cab. I went to the TV station. Nobody would make eye contact with me when I walked in that building. I mean, people were ducking, dodging, looking to see if I really came in the building, looking to see how shitty I looked, frankly. And I remember one colleague that I have a lot of respect for, and he yelled and he goes, McDonough. And I said, yeah. And he goes, woman up. I am the strong one. But you can be strong and broken at the same time. And getting fired, this was so when I was brought into the HR office and my boss came, and boy, his face was red. He was smoking hot. He was mad, and he goes, I offered you help last year. I said, I know. And he said, well, I've consulted with headquarters in New York, and we can't keep you. He said, you had a job for life here, but you are no longer of service to us. And that was just a stab to my heart, because I lived for my job. It was everything. It was my identity, too. And short of my dogs, I love my job more than anything. And he said, we kept that cab for you. You can take it home. You can go to treatment. It's your call. But as of today, you are fired. And that was... So it was a gut punch. I'm fired because of my own behavior and my own actions. So that was the ultimate gut punch.
When I got to ask you, when you said you're fired, did they offer you to help you pay for rehab?
Yes, they did.
Well, that was darn decent of them.
Yep, they did. They helped me pay for rehab. We both were in it together, but they did help me. And I am beyond grateful, and that boss who fired me, I'm happy to say we've made amends, and I've apologized profusely to him, because I did this to him and to Fox News. They didn't do it to me, and I own that. This was self-inflicted. And I think that's something else that's a big takeaway from my particular story, because when I got fired, I listened. That was my wake-up call. And I'm grateful because my boss did for me what I couldn't do for myself.
Well, and today, fast forward to today, you're now a budding author. You've got a brand new book called Stand By that's coming out. We need to take our last break, and we're talking with Beth McDonough and Brishelle. So far, every story that she's told has been either wonderful or horrific.
Yeah, honestly, if you had your own station that played 24/7, I'd probably be awake way too much, because I would want to know everything. So
It's funny you say that. My second book, the sequel to this one, it's more of the vignettes of things that I've seen and covered in my career. And I know we need to go to break, so we can talk about more on that afterward if you'd like.
Yeah.
And Beth, I did this myself, and it means a lot to me. I'd love for you to listen to it or watch it and tell me what you think.
Okay.
The strength of staying kind from your friends at Positive Talk Radio. Kindness is not weakness. It takes real strength to stay kind in a world that often rewards anger, ego, and control. Being kind means choosing to act from your values, not your wounds. It means showing grace even when no one's watching. But kindness doesn't mean being passive. It doesn't mean letting people take advantage of your time, your energy, or your peace. You can be kind and still say no. You have a soft heart with firm boundaries. The strongest people I know are the ones who choose compassion without losing themselves. They've been hurt. They've been tested. And still, they choose to love and lead and to lift others anyway. Kindness is not about pleasing everybody. It's about honoring who you are and how you treat others, even when it's hard. So stay kind, stay human, and stay strong. And always remember this, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.
And welcome back to Positive Talk with Rochelle. That's her right, sheet right there. And, well, she's kind of frozen in time because she's combing her hair out still, I think, and putting eye makeup on and stuff like that. And Beth McDonough is with us. She is a nationally known media person and a crime reporter. By the way, have you thought of, well, first of all, I got to ask you, what do you think of that commercial? Was it all right? Or that statement?
I was really moved. It was very poignant and touching. I was moved. Well done. It's not just watched, it's felt.
Ooh, Rochelle, that's a bumper sticker. We got to.
Oh, yes, I'm already typing it out.
and Beth, you're doing so well now, and you've got the book out, and looking back on all of it, and I don't know that we're going to have time to talk about how your media career ended, which was also a difficult moment in time. Mm-hmm. And I want you to get the book, Stand By, because that story, which I'm sure is in the book, is very important to watch or to read, so that you can get an idea of all the things that you've seen in your life and in your professional work and all the stuff that you've done. It really is remarkable. Do you ever think to yourself, gee whiz, I'm pretty hot. I've done a lot of stuff.
No. Because we all know, the next day in news could be your last day in news. So I never got too comfortable with that. But now, a few years removed from being in the field, I live here in southern Utah now, and I actually ran into someone at a restaurant. We had struck up a conversation, and he was an older gentleman, just came off the golf course, and he was like, "What did you do for a living? And tell me about it." And and I did, and he said, "Did you enjoy it?" And I said, "I got to do everything I wanted to do." And he goes, "Wow, you should." He was very fatherly towards me. He said, "You should really relish that. Not many people get to do that in their careers." And I thought, wow, he's right. I mean, it came with a bunch of yuck too, but that's life, right?
It's like a bad country music song. Sometimes it just happens.
Right.
Yeah, but it's all, at the end of the day, the contribution that you can make to other people that are going through the exact same thing that you went through, not nearly as a high level of visibility, but there are people that are quietly doing the same thing every day who are looking for kind of a role model that can see how it can go from really, really, really bad and losing your job and your reputation and all of that kind of good stuff, which you totally recovered over time and become the person that you are today. And you really are helping people just by telling your story. and the two stories that, Stand By and Still Standing, which you're in the middle of writing, which I'm really looking forward for you to come back and talk to us more when that one comes out too.
Oh, I will. I would be honored to. And, Stand By, you hit on something really important, Kevin. Stand By, it's not a soft start in the book. It starts, you're with me in jail, in that holding cell, the drunk tank, on the cold cot, and you're with me as I experience seeing my mugshot on the monitor. And I just take people kind of in the guts of my story, because we all have challenges, whether you're trying to recover or you have regret in your life or reinvent your life. Everybody's got challenges. And the experiences and the insight that I have after going through the whole process, because I feel like, I had to live my ending before I could go back and tell the beginning to other people. And so I'm taking people all the way through what you don't hear about on the news, what you don't see, what getting a DUI looks like from this side. And I had the unique vantage point of, being a crime reporter, but it's hard to be a crime reporter when you commit a crime. And, I had asked hard questions of people, and now I was being asked the hard questions. So I have some unmatched depth in this. And although my story is personal, it speaks to anyone who's felt like they've exploded for whatever reason in their life. So I show you going through the surreal courtroom and jail experiences that I had. Like, for instance, one of my cellies, as they call them, I learned, your cellmates, was a member of an organization that advocates against drinking and driving, Mothers Against Drunk Driving. She was in there for DUI. It's just, this alcoholism doesn't discriminate. It's an equal opportunity disease.
Exactly.
And then another woman who was in the jail cell, and she was not having a good night like any of us. And she leaned down to the ground and squatted and grunted. And I was horrified when his Ziploc baggie came out of her private parts. She's like, "Hey, you want some Coke?" And I'm like, this is just a whole new level of low, Beth McDonough.
And you were in jail, and she had, oh my goodness gracious.
They hadn't searched her yet. They were going to do that. So I take you through the surreal court experience that I had, and the judge, who was the first person that gave me any ounce of mercy in this months-long process. And the prosecutor certainly wanted me to go to jail. And she was pushing for 3 months in jail. And the judge said, "Beth, I'd like to speak to you alone in chambers." And I was like, it's already bad. I know what my fines are and some other things. This is bad. It's about to get a bunch worse. And I go into his chambers, and as I'm turning the corner to go in, there the judge is standing outright with his arms to hug me. And he says, "Come here." He said, "When I first saw your name on my docket, he said, I started following your case because I knew it would be pretty rough on you." And he hugged me, and I just bawled. That was the first moment of mercy. And he said, "I want you to know you will come out of this as a better person." He said, "Today is my 20-year sober anniversary," the judge. And that was so inspiring to me. And I think it was the first moment that I'm like, okay, you can be broken and be brave, and you can do this. Look at him. He bounced back.
Yeah.
And when you see someone can bounce back, you're like, okay, how did you bounce back? What worked for you? What could work for me? So I take people along the journey of some people, talk about their story when they're safely on the other side. I started writing this when I was in the guts of it on house arrest at home for 37 days, tapping away at my computer because, we're writers. I've always written my own stories. And I just wanted anyone to know that when you struggle with bad decisions that you've made in your life, few people talk about it. But I'm like, I can't go through this and not talk about it. I can reach people. I can, have something to say that might resonate with them and something along my story. Let me show you why you don't want to go to jail. It really sucks. been there, done it twice. Let me show you why you don't want to go to a workhouse. And I took people through in the book. I go into every ugly detail. I mean, I tell you the mess every step of the way to go, this is punishment for a reason. You don't want to come back. And the lessons that I learned along the way and the perspective I've gained and the grounding I've gained, that I just feel like there's stories and experience I can share will really resonate with people who need it. And, also they can go back and watch this video anytime when they need a moment of strength or they need someone to say, hold on, hang in there. You can do it. And look at me. I mean, here I am 16 years later talking with you. As good as my life was before, I bounced back even better by accepting everyone commented, when I came back to TV news. And in fact, the day I sold my doggy daycare, and I sold it because I was exhausted after 3 years and I got a good offer. KSTP called me out of the blue and they said, we've been following you. We heard you've been putting in the work. We'd like to offer you a job to get back into TV news. I mean, who'd have thunk? And they told me no 3 years ago to my face prior to that. And they were like, when you do the work, you reap the rewards and you accept accountability. And I have every step of the way. I think that makes a huge difference. And that's something I'd really like to impress upon people that, the devastation rebuilt me into a much better person and the takeaway that I can share with others. So the stories have to be used for a good reason.
Absolutely. And Rochelle, I've got one more question to ask Beth before we're done, but I know you've been chomping at the bit to ask something.
No, Kevin, I've just been listening. I'm anxious to know if there was one story that hit you the hardest very shortly and why.
Oh my gosh.
There were so many there, but this question that I need to ask her is important to anybody who's listening.
Yeah, I'll save that question for our next show, and we'll wrap it up with yours.
And I've got a good answer for you, Rochelle.
Okay.
When the day comes.
And that you went through hell. You had a great career. You lost everything. You worked to get it back by starting to pick up poop, dog poop, and it started from there. Through all of that, and now 16 years later, all of that's in the past, and you've forgiven yourself for all of that, right?
It has taken time. I probably was not prepared for how hard that would be and how long that would take, because, I made my career, not just professionally, but personally, helping people and being a problem solver. And anytime, someone couldn't fix their problems, they called me and I could. And I was really, really disappointed in myself and questioned myself. And it took years and a lot of therapy. I also did EMDR for some PTSD. I've seen all of these things that I've seen in my life because of the career. And that was very helpful as well. But I would say the final nugget or peg that I needed was, first, I needed everyone that I had hurt to forgive me. And I asked for their forgiveness and I apologized to them. And then you kind of look in the mirror and you're like, okay, you're the last man up. It's your turn. Can you forgive yourself for what you've done to other people? Because there's a lot of collateral damage. And, through therapy and learning and realizing that even through my hard work and all the steps that I've taken, along with the help and the commitment to get sober and live a life of recovery and live a clean life, now that I'm on this other side of it, yes, I forgive myself now. I haven't forgotten it. I will never forget it because how do you forget something like blowing up your life with an atomic bomb?
And it's not about the past. because you have got, the only thing you can control is today and into the future. The past is what happened. Okay, so some of it wasn't great, but that's not the person that you are today. And you are a great human being today. And bless you, Beth McDonough, for the work that you're doing, the book that you're writing, and the story that you're telling, because it is so important. Rochelle, do you agree?
100%. And we're here to follow you along your journey. I can't wait to have you back so that I can ask more questions.
I'm sorry. I wanted to talk to Beth for the longest time.
You're
I'm sorry,
good,
Michelle.
you're good. This has been amazing just to be here. So thank you so much, Beth, for your time.
You bet. And I hope by sharing my truth, finally getting over the stigma and the shame and coming clean and sharing my truth, I hope it encourages others to do theirs, to share their truth as well, because that's where the healing begins.
Amen.
And they will. And thank you, Beth McDonough, for being here. You are a superstar. Go to BethMcDmedia.com. Find out all about her. Pre-order the book. It's going to be a big one, and it's going to be my prediction, a New York Times #1 bestseller.
Oh my gosh, Kevin, I hope you're right. I'm still in rebuilding mode after, the couple of stories that I've shared with you about my health and the George Floyd riot. So thank you. I hope so. Yeah, it's a good pivot.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And thank you, Beth, for being here. Rochelle, thank you so much for letting me dominate the conversation.
Of course, it's been a joy.
And have a great day, everybody. Again, Beth McDonough has been our guest. BethMcDmedia.com. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Positive Talk with Kevin McDonald. Our purpose is to provide everyone with a positive, entertaining, and educational experience. I would love your feedback and comments about the show, including possible topics and great guest suggestions. Please email me at kevin@kmmedia.pro. And remember, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got. That's Kevin